And whenever you come on something too, as I say, that their Pearl Harbor event they said they needed, that was the New American Century organization. They published it up in the 90s that they needed a Pearl Harbor event to motivate the public along with these, which would be otherwise unpopular wars that they'd planned with Afghanistan and Iraq, then Iran, and then Syria, in that order, by the way. And then people really, most folk took it for stride, say, oh, we're being attacked, we've got to save our country. And now a lot of people have woken up to the fact that the towers had to go down to give them their Pearl Harbor event. And the whole thing stinks, obviously. And I won't go into it because you could talk for days and days on all the things that you've picked up yourself or others have picked up on the way the towers went down, etc., etc. Lots of data on that. And these characters also are bringing in the big ecosystem. As we go down the hill, they will also bring in rationing with food, by the way, carbon taxes and everything. That includes your food. Do you know how much carbon this thing gave off to grow it? And when the chemicals were added and the carbon that led off in the making of the chemicals, etc. That's all going to be added to everything. Your post-consumer society for sustainability, and they're using the austerity nonsense to get us through, plus ecological nonsense as well. Because all the money they used to spend on getting a fridge or a stove or whatever else or a new car will be going on fees and carbon taxes of all kinds. All kinds. That's what you'll be doing with your money. But they need also an ecological disaster, you see, a Pearl Harbor event to push off and really kick off the fragility of the planet and how easy is it to kill it off, etc. They put out about 12 movies of catastrophes and future scenarios where we're all dying and under these grey skies and never tell me the spraying of our head, nothing like that. No. Just we're all dying and we can't get food and stuff like that. All to program you for what's coming up, you see. And it also shows you in these movies how you should obey the authorities. Well, you go through all this. And that's how folk get their ideas of how to obey from. It's predictive programming. And they put an awful lot of money into a lot of awful movies to make sure you get the message. But they still need a Pearl Harbor event. And they kicked that off with the Deepwater well going off in the Gulf, you see. Everything was done opposite of by the book. And this is from the Washington Post, I think it's from today. Technician says a Deepwater rising warning system was disabled Friday 23rd. Long before an eruption of gas turned the Deepwater Horizon oil rig into a fireball, an alarm system designed to alert crew and prevent combustible gases from reaching potential sources of ignition had been deliberately disabled. Deliberately disabled, for those that are hard of thinking. The former chief electronics technician on the rig testified Friday. Michael Williams, an ex-Marine who survived on April the 20th inferno by jumping from the burning rig, told the federal panel that probing the disaster that the alarm system was one of an array of critical systems that had been functioning unreliably in the run-up to the blowout. It's amazing that then that crew came in to certify it, and after they took off in the helicopters to go back home, it blew up 2 hours later. Isn't it? But these things weren't even functioning. Williams told the panel that he understood that the rig had been operating with the gas alarm system in inhabited mode for a year to prevent false alarms from disturbing the crew. So that's why they turned it off, so that it wouldn't disturb the crew. He said the explanation he got was that the leadership of the rig did not want crew members needlessly awakened in the middle of the night. Well, I tell you, it doesn't matter what time of day these things go off. You need them. It could be the real thing, right? They know that too. If the safety system was disabled, it would not have been a unique event. Records of federal enforcement actions reviewed by the Washington Post show that in case after case, rig operators paid fines for allegedly bypassing safety systems that could impede routine operations. Computers used to monitor and control drilling operations intermittently froze to the point that the problem became known as the blue screen of death, Williams said. Despite attempted repairs, the issue remained unresolved at the time of the blowout, he said. Earlier in the drilling operation, one of the panels that controlled the blowout preventer, the last line in defense against a gusher, had been placed in bypass mode to work around a malfunction, Williams said. He testified to it. He also said a colleague told him that an inspection of the rig in the spring shortly before the disaster found extensive maintenance problems. The colleague said that we were going to be in the shipyard a lot longer than anticipated because the rig was in very bad condition. It was owned by Transocean, the company that employs Williams, and was operating under a contract to BP. So there you have a disaster waiting to happen, obviously. And since this was the first one in such deep water, how come they followed all their old games and turned everything off when this was vital? They'd never gone so deep, they claim. Why would they turn all this stuff off? Knowing where this will all flow into. They know the current flows and everything, long, all in the planning stages. They know if anything goes wrong, that's all done in the planning phases, where the stuff would flow into, including loss of wildlife and human life and all the rest of it. That's all done way in advance. This was set up to happen the way it did happen, and that is rather obvious. That's rather obvious. So they've got their Pearl Harbor events. Apparently in the States, they're showing this every single day now, on and on and on, to make sure we all get the message. That, a massive disaster, oil and so on. There's got to be more rationing of this stuff and higher taxes on it and less usage of it and so on and so on and so on and so on. So it'll accomplish this task. Plus, they'll bring in the big eco fees on everything, big carbon taxes on the drivers. They're already going to do that in Britain. In Britain, they're going to put in, according to the Royal Automobile Corporation, the RIIA, they're going to bring in taxing you per kilometer that you drive. And of course, it'll start off at a certain price, so we're not freaked out. And then we'll get used to it going up so much, maybe twice a year, 3 times a year, whatever. We're managed like cattle, folks, you see. We're domesticated. That's why they can manage us like this. We're domesticated. It's only in places like Ireland, from that article I read, they've got a bit of fight left in them. And they've got the cojones left to say what has to be said. When your country's been sold out. And it was sold out long ago, actually, because you see, in France, the UN held their big secret agreements on the multilateral trade agreements, which allowed them, foreign investors, to invest in your country without the rules of your country holding. And they've been looting countries ever since. Where's the big mainstream media when all that's going on? Well, they're very quiet about it, aren't they? The media is an appendage, an arm of government. Without media and government, well, the government could not possibly survive. They need the government to keep you, the media to keep you in your own cloud, basically. Your Plato's cave. And make sure everyone gets the same news, regardless of the newspapers they read or the TV stations they listen to. They get the same indoctrination of lies and predictive programming. That's the purpose of media. That's why the media moguls own hundreds of papers each. And they own hundreds of radio stations and television stations each. And that's why they go over and get knighted for the Queen of England. Why do you think they get knighted? It's because they have been long-serving members and very goody two-shoe boys for the Royal Institute for International Affairs to help bring about this world government, this feudal system of masters and peasants. That's why. An essential arm of government. And remember, too, what Jacques Ellul said, the other one, the philosopher. He said that don't forget that all entertainment is propaganda. But it also includes your news as well. It's propaganda. All tools of communication are propaganda tools. From the pyramid top down to you, with a different version for you at the bottom. You're the domesticated animal. A wild man, according to Charles Galton Darwin. A wild man could not be fooled. He says we must retain our wildness at the top. He says, but the public at the bottom won't need their wildness. That's when he's talking about lobotomizing them chemically by injections and different things and all the rest of it. And their food. He says they won't need to be wild and retain all their survival capabilities because the state will be making all their decisions for them. But we said the wild men, the leaders, must have all our survival capabilities running full time, at full power. That's happened, folks. See, the war started a long time ago. And everyone's IQ's dropped, except the offspring of certain people who are already pre-selected for scientific work in the future. They're special mathematicians, etc., etc. They get access to different food than the stuff, that rubbish they're dishing out to you. They get special inoculations that actually work. They're not full of viruses and stuff, and they don't target your brain to lobotomize you either. That's the real world, folks.